Okay, for our first style of animation, what we're going to do is go to the default cube here. We'll go to top view. I'll select it. I'm going to lift this up a little bit so we can see the timeline. We're on frame 1. Let's just hit the back arrow, go to frame 0, and select the cube, and we'll insert a key using the I key for location and rotation. Then I'm going to go forward 30 frames. I'm going to grab the cube, G key to grab. I'm also going to rotate it. R for rotate. If you hold down the control button, we constrain it to even increments, and insert a key for location and rotation. So you see the workflow here. You go to the frame, you grab the object, G key, apply any transforms such as rotations, which is what I'm doing, and insert a key. I'm not getting that perfect, but that's okay. On to frame 90. And again, same thing. Go to the frame, move the object, make adjustments, insert the keyframe. I've got one last one to do. Now, had I been smart, I would have inserted the keyframe on frame 120 right at the beginning instead of having to come back and try to match it, because I'll never quite match it perfectly. So the best way is to insert frame 0 and frame 120 right at the beginning. So if we go back to frame 0 and play this now, look at that. We've got our first basic animation, and it's very simple to do. That's keyframes. Okay, let's look at another one. And what I'm going to do is just close this down. We'll go general once again. We're not going to save that. And instead of keyframe animation, I'm going to use a different tool. And I'll move the 3D cursor up here, say. We'll go Shift A, add a curve, and make it a path. I'm going to scale that up a little bit. And then what I'll do is we want to apply a transform. So we select an object. We go down here to, or constraint, I'm sorry, we want to apply a constraint. And the constraint we want to apply is follow path. And not surprisingly, we've got to select a path. We can either use the eyedropper and click on it, or click target and select the only path that we've got. And you notice it's already working. The only thing is, if we hit the space bar, it doesn't move. It did align, it went to the beginning. What we also have to do is go animate path. And there we go, we've got our first animation. Now you're going to notice a problem, because at 100 frames, which is how far this animation is, whoops, let's go back to 100, it's at the end of the path that we created. But we actually want it to go further. So now what we do is we go down to the object data properties, make sure we select the path. Object data properties, and in path animation, we can set this to whatever number we want. I think the default, yeah, it's set to 250, our default animation. Let's just match that for simplicity's sake. And now we can do some really interesting things with this path. So we can scale it up, for example. I'm going to go to edit mode, and we can grab individual vertices, and we can give this thing a little more shape. We can go to side view, and we can grab a vertice and lift it up. And we're going to make that almost like a roller coaster here. Another thing we can do that's quite cool is we'll zoom out a bit and hold down the control button and right mouse click. And what we're doing actually is extending the path. Hit the tab button, go back to frame 0, and it should follow that for a 250 frame animation. Now you notice one little problem. It's not turning with the path, and that's significant, especially if you've got an airplane or something. So we'll go back and select our object, and we need to hit the button curve or follow curve. Okay, let's go back to the beginning again, and if we zoom in, we'll see that it actually is moving. Do you remember in the first keyframe animation style that I showed, you had to do rotations if you wanted it to look like it was actually turning with the radius of the circle? Well, this is just a single button, and that's what makes this a whole lot better. Again, by the way, we could go into side view here, grab individual vertices, and give this thing a third dimension if we wanted to. Okay, and now if we watch from here and go back to frame 0, you can see it is a bit like a roller coaster actually in terms of how this thing moves. The only thing we don't have are speed adjustments based on the steepness of the angle, but I'm not going to worry about that. All right, that's it. Over and out.